Hello and welcome back to another PrizeCP Roblox Studio tutorial. This is an old game that we used in one of our previous lessons, and you can see here I have a leaderboard. If I grab one of these walls, I get 1,000 points, and also I get a point for every second that I'm in the game. But look what happened if I leave the game, and then I come back in at a later time. All my points from the previous game has disappeared. So in today's tutorial, we're gonna learn how to save those points. So when we come back into the game the next time, we're not gonna lose all our points. Before we go into our lesson for today, let's take a look at the prerequisite for this lesson. New beginners, you should start with the PrizeCP Roblox for New Beginner series. I have included the link here for you. And down here I have the related materials. In case you want to get more details on certain topic, you can click on the link over here. Alright, so without further ado, let's go to Studio and see how we can add DataStore to our leaderboard. To use DataStores in our game, first we have to set it up first. So first you need to have a game, make sure it's published. So go to File, click Publish to Roblox if you haven't already done so. And then you come back into the game, go to File again, go to Game Settings, click on Security, and make sure Enable Studio Access to API Services is turned on. Make sure you click Save after you've done that. And now you're back into Studio, and we're ready to add data stores to your game. Here, I already have a script inside my server script service. It's called main. Let's take a look at it. Basically what we have here is we are getting the player service, and then we have the player added event here. So whenever the player joins the game, we're gonna give the player a leaderboard, and then we're giving the player 1 point for every second that the player is in the game. So this code for the leaderboard is all good and working. Next thing we want to do is we want to add the data store to the script, so that we can save the player's points. For the data store, I have here a module script that's gonna take care of the database for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna need to declare a require variable for the module script. So let's say local access database equals to required is the keyword, and I need to give the path name to the module script. So it's just going to be this script dot, and the name of my module script is database. So it's script.database. And now let's go down here. We're going to add a player removing event. So players dot player removing colon connect to a function, and the player parameter is automatically passed in. Here I'm just gonna say access database dot set database. So when you want to get the data from the database, you say get database. When you want to put data into the database, you say set database. And basically get database is the GetAsync function, and set database is the SetAsync function. So right now I want to do a SetAsync, so I say set database. And we're going to look at the code for set database and get database later in the module script. Right now let's just use it. So access database dot set database to write a record or an entry into the database, into the data store. And notice here we need two things. We need the user ID and we need the points. So the user ID is just player dot user ID, and the points is this points right here, right? So it's let me see, it's player dot leader stats let me make sure I spell it correctly. Dot leaderstats dot points dot value. Alright, so whenever the player leaves the game, we're gonna set database, we're gonna write this entry into our data store, passing in the player user ID and the player's point. On the other hand, when the player joins the game, we're setting up the leaderboard here and we're giving the player 0 points here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to insert the code in here to get the value from the data store if there is a value in the data store for this player. So to get the value, let's declare a local variable. Let's call it p value equals to, we're gonna use access database again. So access database dot get database, and here we only need one parameter, which is the user ID. So it's gonna be player dot user ID. So we're calling access database with the user ID, and it's going to return the points value from that player if there is one. So we got to check here to see if there is a value for that player, because if the player plays the game for the first time, there's going to be no database value for the player, right? So let's check to see if p value then means if it's not nil, then we're going to change the points here from 0, right, to the value that is stored in the data store. So we're going to change that to p value. Okay, so now let's go and take a look at the code inside our module script here. So the first thing we want to look at is we want to look at the set database, right? Let's open up the module script here. So set database basically is using the SetAsync function to set the database. So let's back up a little bit. So up here I declare the DataStoreService, right, which I'm going to use to declare my data store here. So this is the name of my data store, and to write data into the database, I need to use the SetAsync function, passing in the key, which is the user ID, and the value, which is the points. And the reason I don't use this directly in my main script, instead of using it directly here, down here, SetAsync, I use setDatabase because I need to make sure that there's no error. So I'm wrapping a pcall around the SetAsync, and then here I'm checking for error before I pass back the value. But SetAsync, you don't pass back anything. So if there is an error, I'm just gonna write out a warning error message. Otherwise, if it's good, then it's good. On the other hand, when you're in player added, you're using the GetDatabase function from the module script. And let's take a look at the GetDatabase. So basically it's the same concept. GetDatabase, you're using GetAsync, and you need to wrap it inside. You need to wrap a pcall around it just to make sure that it's not going to crash your game, and then you check for errors. So over here I'm checking if it's successful, and there is a point returning from GetAsync. So if the player enters the game for the first time, there's no points, then I'm just going to return nil. So if it is successful and the points is not nil, then I'm going to return the points, which we're going to load it into this p value. And then we're checking if p value is not nil, we're going to load the leaderboard points with that p value. All right, let's play and take a look. Let me now open up my output window. I just want to make sure there's no error, because if for some reason you're trying to access the database, and remember we have that warning message, then we would see the message in here. So for the first time, let's open up the output just to make sure. You can see here that my points from the previous game has been loaded in, because now it's starting at 3,000 something as opposed to starting at 0. So as I go and score more points in my game, you see my points is going up. If I leave the game now and come back into the game again, I should have, I believe, like 6,000 something. And there is 6,000 something from the previous game before I left the game. So my points is not reset to 0, it's gonna keep on going up. Alright everyone, that's how you use DataStore together with the leaderboard to save all your points.